song's called One Billionaire. I'm told the average adult billionaire yields £50 a meet. The rest of his random bonus thrown to the hands of me. As distasteful as it's wasteful, it's my considered opinion that instead their wealth should be spread out across the starving millions. And I'm only vegetarian if I can't give up the cheese. The thought of turning cannibal makes me sick and uneasy, but I'm prepared to make an exception. Start buttering up some bats, because we've only got to eat one billionaire and all the rest of them will pay their tax. So let's get basting, braising, seasoning, for spit roasted spatchcock. Boil up bones of gravy for your crusty bread. Come on, when you eat your fill, remember there's only so much to go round. So many more empty bellies to fill their tax account. And when we finish feasting, wash him down with wine and snacks. It's say goodbye to care, it's time to sit back and relax. Warm in the glow of a job well done for possession of the fact that we already got to eat one billionaire for all the rest of them to pay their tax. So take the butcher to the billionaire directly without fuss. Take the butcher to the billionaire, select the choices cuts. Take the butcher to the billionaire, stuff his ass with nuts. Take the butcher to the billionaire, and we'll all stop our guts. The 1% get richer, the poor are left to starve. Fear, cold and hunger stalk the streets as brutal times get harder. You corrupt politicians, you media moguls, you oligarchs and fat cats. Remember, we've only got to eat one billionaire, or the rest of you will pay your tax. So you poor folk, you take courage, you billionaires take heed. Take only what is necessary to each to their needs. The world rejects your avarice, your gluttony and your greed, and I implore that you form an orderly queue down the HMRC. Cause we've only got to eat one yum yum yum, only got to eat one yum yum, only got to eat one billionaire. Gobble them up and stop right there. That's enough, that'll do. Just the one no need for two. Suddenly remembering the right thing to do when they find their billionaire on the menu, running in terror and a terrible stew, bash down the door to the inland revenue. They'll be bashed down the door to the inland revenue, running from the carving knives to me and you.
When it comes down to it, a lot of people asking, well, was it worth it? Is it worth doing that strike action? We went out at this time last year, we were saying, actually, what we quite like is an above pay rise, pay increase. Above inflation pay rise. That's what we wanted. 10%, please. That's above, yeah, we haven't had one for 13 years. Everything's been below inflation. By the time we got to taking the action in September, that 10% we were asking for was at inflation. By the time we made an agreement, it was below inflation. That was the 10% we were asking for. We ended up managing to get 5%. Was it worth it? We kept saying, was it worth it? We managed to get it. The deal we managed to get meant that instead of having a pay cut of 8%, we got a pay cut of 5% instead. So actually, that was a benefit. But in September, we were one of the first people, or one of the earliest unions to be going out. And actually, so we kind of preempted it. By the time we were settling, everyone else was coming out. And actually, it was worth it because the more of us go out in those separate bits, the more of us actually take this action in the separate little spaces, the better it is. Because when we're on the picket line, we're showing solidarity with each other as well. When we were on that picket line, we were showing solidarity with CWU, with the RMT. They were visiting us, we were visiting them. And I want it to carry on. I want to go and visit the nurses, I want to, because we are all in this together, ultimately. And if we all take our individual bits of action, we can make a difference, collectively, and that's the point of this.
But everybody all around the world's going to a party. It's a good job we moved the furniture upstairs. Had a party last week animatronic I blocked, I couldn't fix it. Oh no. Then somebody bought me some caustic soda and a plunger. With a blocker, sing, tech, jump, the bed, go bonkers and rip off the duvet. There's a party at Bryant. A party at Bryant. A party at Bryant tonight. But we haven't told you his words. Refuse all the lights and kiss all the girls and have a good time. And maybe we'll hear a little banging at the door. If it's the neighbors complaining, let them in. But if it's the police, well, let's just sit quiet. But it might just be me, 'cause that's the kind of guy I am. Walk out to sing, cat, jump on the bed, go bonkers and rip up the duvet. There's a party at Brian's. Party at Brian's. A party at Brian's. Party at Brian's. A party at Brian's tonight. But we haven't told him yet. We'll all have a ball till 12 o'clock, and then we've got to turn the record player down. And we'll just sit and talk, or maybe play a game of Scrabble. But we'll be back next week, dancing cheek to cheek, and in the meantime, we all know Shang-a-lang-a shooby-doo-wah means power to the people. We'll block up, sing, cat, jump on the bed, the bonkers and rip up the duvet. There's a party at Brian's. Party at Brian's. Party at Brian's. Party at Brian's. Party at Brian's tonight. Fair enough. Right. The next.
Yes, I'm a ECS advocate at DEFRA, so I work at Rivers House. Used to work for the Environment Agency. I got tutored into DEFRA in 2017 because I work in IT and other sins. Yes, I've had the honour of having the support of the Trades Council here on a couple of pickets recently in our dispute to basically try and fight what was effectively an 8% real terms pay cut on top of problems with our pension and problems with things being loose about changing out unnecessary arrangements to make it easy to sack or cheaper to sack. Only about a dozen actual sort of DEFRA people actually in that building on East Quay, because there's a lot of environmental people there still there. So it's been quite a lonely business doing a picket out there, especially in the cold. And I think it's just showing me how important it is, the type of solidarity that Trade Union Network provides, and how important it is for us to work together locally. I mean, basically, perhaps I shouldn't be waxing too political, but I think we're in for a couple of brutal decades, really, and we're subjected to a persistent top-down class war. You might say that's always the case over history. It probably is, but I think at the moment, the bastards in charge basically are determined to protect their own wealth and power and make sure it's us who get sacrificed. So I think they've got the power, we've got the numbers, solidarity is important, and things like the Trade Union Network are crucial to that. And so, yeah, solidarity is good.
Malcolm C was a transport boss. Hell was to pay when he got cross. The work is meant to an early grave, so come down heavy on the old M5. Roll, you truckers, roll. Roll, you drivers, roll. Roll, ain't no change in your pay when you're working for multi-fleet, roll away. Brendan H was traffic control. People to say that he had no soul. He sent you to Chippenham on your own. Then he called you up on the cellnet phone. Say, roll, you truckers, roll. Roll, you drivers, roll. Roll, ain't no change in your pay when you're working for multi-freight, roll away. Dino K was a yard hand there. He'll load you up till there's no room spare. Then he'll load you up just a little bit more till you had to climb in through the passenger door. Roll, you truckers, roll. Roll, you drivers, roll. No day no change in your pay. Working for multi-room, roll away. Mikey T was a union man. When there was a fight, he never ran. He'd walk up to the boss and he'd talk it over with him. Then he'd lay down and let him walk right over him. Roll, you truckers, roll. Roll, you workers, roll. No day no change in your pay. You're working for multi-freight, roll away. No day no change in your pay. Working for multi-freight, roll away.
Stations is going up on strike as of Monday until the end of this week. The dispute is over their pay offer of 4.2, which gives our bottom grade personnel £10.66 an hour. At the present time, We have got, because our grade 2 was below minimum wage, they put grade 2 days up to £10.42. But they haven't moved grade 2 shift. They're hiding behind the fact they are not, it is under their contracted pay of £12.19. So it should really be £10.50, sorry, £12.50. This is a company which is a global company with £2.6 billion profit last year. Sealing Solutions, which is a part of the sector we work in, profit £63 million last year. The CEO of Trelling Board announced last year we had the best year ever. 33% increase in the last quarter alone. So far this year, a 25% increase in sales. And management are saying they don't have the money. They use an independent pay review board to put a national pay offer out. The national pay offer went out and we were one of the last people actually to be made the offer of 5.2. I'm in contact with other sites. They'd already told me what the offer was before we even went into our meeting, and the management offered us 5. When we went back in, they eventually said, after a lot of them in an hour, in 2.5 hours, 5.2. I didn't even bother taking that back to everybody on the shop floor. It was an absolute waste of time. We went straight for strike action. We had a 98.7% turnout. 0.8% rejection. So we are hitting the numbers. Tewkesbury are out on exactly the same dates, which is our sister company. And what really upsets most of the people in Trelleborg right now, Tewkesbury are on £1,385 a year more start with. We are so far behind the rest of the group, it is unbelievable. Yet, we are the ones that are making all the profit. The site sales, which are all internal, none of our sales go to customers, they go to holding companies in Europe. £23 million worth of sales at Bridgwater. Tewkesbury, 17 million. Rotherham, 11 million. Yet we are at the bottom of the pay scale, and that's why we're out fighting.
Yes. And the widows of the brave, so the poorest and the weakest from poverty were saved, helping hands for those that need it, from the cradle to the grave. It's the visionary plan that they call the welfare state. Schools and benefits fulfilled, and hundred times of need, little playing field for all, the whole country all agreed that the rich that could
So yes, my name's Nick. I have been working for Amazon for 6 years, 2 years at Leicester and 4 years in Coventry. So some of the things we can shed, life of Amazon, I think will shock you. I mean, to give you an idea, 3 years ago, I had cancer. I got given bowel cancer. So I went off to, I mean, luckily at the moment, you know, everything so far, from the scans, the tests, the bloods, everything at the moment I'm coming out is all clear. So, you know, that's the best thing part of it. So I got told by my manager to go down to get a letter from the hospital. So off I went to the surgeon and said, you know, look, I need a letter from the surgeon. He said, no, not a problem. He wrote me a lovely letter, type of sort of what an operation I'm going in for, type, you know, everything. Had to send it to the general email address of Amazon, which is their head office in London. 2 weeks after I came out of it, so basically, because the laws of the UK, I guess you could say, don't pay you for the first 3 days. So I went to hospital after that, came out 2 weeks later, and looked at my payslip and realised they hadn't been paid. So I rang them up and said, why have I not been paid? Oh, sorry, we don't accept letters from the hospital. Because it's fraud. So after jumping up and down a bit and saying, look, you know, I'm pretty much on my deathbed here, mate. I can't even get in my car and drive to the GP surgery. And he was like, we don't, you know, look, we'll make an exception for you, but we won't do this for normal. So I was like, okay, thanks for that. And the only reason apparently they didn't accept it was simply because the doctor had not put the return to work date on the letter. So literally, because when I sent him an email back and said, look, because of cancer, you don't know when the return to work is, because you can have chemo, you can have complications, you can have anything. I don't know when I'll be coming back to work. And he was like, well, you should know. And I'm like, I don't know. And he sort of goes, well, you have to have an idea. And it's like, well, pretty much put it down for November for now, we'll see. And he sort of went, okay, that'll do then. And off, you know, eventually I got paid for the time I was off. I got sort of the statutory sick pay from the government. My next, after that, Amazon's policy is if you have 4 months off work, you get called into a disciplinary. So the manager calls me up and says, hey guys, we need to talk to you. And I'm like, okay. Thinking it was just a standard return to work, nice sort of chat, what we need to help you with. Next minute, here is what they call a letter of concern, which is basically a written warning for taking 4 months off for cancer. When I went to them and said, look, I had cancer, I could have died, they just went, so what? Policy. So my response was, you don't want to do that because I'll call my lawyers and we'll see what happens from there. They went, no, don't do that, we'll cancel everything, no, we won't talk about this anymore. So off we went back to work. A few weeks later, I had basically a stoma bag on me. So part of that is you had to basically keep an eye on it just in case anything happened to it. Got put in they have this, because it was during COVID, we had a team of people shouting 2 meters to people just to keep their distances during COVID. So, because originally they wanted to put me into a trailer and said, here, you have to empty all these boxes. When I turned around and said, no, I can't do that because I might get a hemorrhage, this is my doctor's GP note, they basically almost tore the GP note up and said, well, get back in the trailer. And it's like, no, I'm not doing that because my GP, he's a medical expert, he knows best. And the surgeon has told me this as well, so I'm refusing. And they just sort of went, well, if you refuse, we'll talk about lawyers. We'll talk about disciplinaries and stuff. And I just turned around and said, look, okay, we'll talk about lawyers then, because this is a discrimination act. So I got put in this team of shouting 2 meters, the social distancing angels. So while I was standing in my corner, basically shouting 2 meters to people as they went on break, I noticed that the bag had started coming undone. So raced off, got my bag, changed it, came back. So I'd gone for about 15-20 minutes. The lead comes up to me and says, where did you go? I said, I needed to go and change the bag in the toilet. No, you're not allowed to go and change the bag in the toilet because you're not allowed to leave your post. So I was like, if I don't leave the bag, you're going to have a big mess on the floor. She sort of thought about this and said, well, you should have come and found me. And I'm like, yes, but if it'd take me 3 hours, it'd take me an hour to try and find you inside this warehouse because you disappear every time anyway, and I have no idea where you've gone. And while I'm walking around the warehouse, there's going to be a big mess of a trail going through the warehouse. I got told, sorry, here's a warning for leaving the post for 20 minutes. So my response was, okay, messaged my manager, messaged the HR and said, I want to talk to you tomorrow, right now, because this is unfair. All I got told was, no, you're not allowed to have a meeting with us yet, you have to wait. I'm like, wait for what? You have to wait. So I said, no, I want a meeting right now, this is not fair, this is bad. Had the meeting, warning stands. And I'm like, why? They said, because you left your post. And I'm like, if I hadn't left my post, you'd had a big mess on the floor. And they were just like, doesn't matter. You left your post. We had X amount of, because basically as you walk past the scanners, there was a beep. They had something like 2 beeps in that 20 minutes. And I'm like, come on guys, this is silly. So when I shouted Discrimination Act at them again, they backed off and said, okay, yes, we have to make things behind it. So, you know, basically things that Amazon do is just shout policy. That's all, that's basically life is policy. When you ask them what is the policy, it's we don't know. You know, my job is basically loading boxes and totes into the trailers. When there's a blue light, which just basically means your line is full, it's go faster. Because we have to clear the backlog that's happening upstairs to go faster. And it's like, well, you know, we're going as fast as we can. And it's like, you're not going fast enough, go faster. If you tried to say, can I go to the toilet? If there's a blue light flashing, no. It's almost like, you have to clear this first, then you can go. So, you know, everything in Amazon is all numbers. It's speed. You know, we get on our scanners every morning, we get a question. And the questions are things like, do we love, how safe is Amazon? When you think of safety, Amazon's policy is safety's number 1. Safety goes down to the, way down the list. When I noticed that somebody had, the trailer basically got changed, was getting swapped over full trailer to empty trailer. the guy had got told he had to put his totes around his thing on the around the container, around the thing on the floor, waiting for the new trailer. Because of him and the lead had basically blocked the fire exit. When I went and pointed it out, it's like, sorry, we can't do anything. And it's like, it's a fire risk. If you don't move it, you know, there could be big consequences. No, we have to wait for the trailer. So, you know, safety, we've gone from 6 high totes to 7 high totes. We're now on 8 high totes. And they've basically got some new robot that you can stack up that's going to push it into 9 high totes. So, you know, it won't be long before we start doing 10 high totes, 12 high totes. Who knows what the limit is on that. So, you know, Amazon is what they want. Amazon does what they want. So, you know, well, Garfield now will talk about the union and life of what we have achieved.
Well, I know it sounds crazy, but I feel that I've been cursed by a vision in the booty cold days. Short purse, barely in the 20s, only 5 before she got my heart behind the counter, down at the country store. Stopping by the struck chords, the only reason that I got since my dog got run over around the horse got shot. Smell of iodine, another cream and saddles open. There's an air of desperation hanging around me as I hope. We bump into each other, there's a meeting of our hearts down beside the chicken feet and chainsaw parts. You got me wondering where else round the shop floor since I left my heart down at the country store. You're gonna find me out in the country where the men are all men and the sheep are a bit jumpy. Gonna get the country gun out of give or takes ages. Gonna give her loving on the farm boy's wages. I left my heart there where all the Land Rovers parked there. Yeah, yeah. City's thinking urban, I don't know what you're missing. I'm dreaming of the country nights, hugging and kissing with the beautiful girl behind the service bench. Stood beside the cattle lips and worm in drench. The cool kids in the corner might just say it's all whack to have a shed full of tractor spares and ride intact. And 100 other fools don't even know what they're all for, but I know that I'm the fool that's hard at the country store. You're gonna find me out in the country. Find your bacon tiny, hanging smashed on scrump. You're gonna get the country gun out of give or take ages. Gonna give her loving on the farm boy's wages. No, no, find your bacon is very PC, but it rhymes, alright? I left my heart there, where all the Chelsea tractors parked there. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'll assimilate and integrate and fit right into all things agricultural and equestrian. Hunter boots on my feet, shooting prints on my wall, and a flat cap and barber jacket fools them all, and a pocket full of bail twine to complete the country story. But I'm too old for young farmers, and I'm fucked if I'm very Tory. You're gonna find me out in the country where the old buddy Brexit is still fucking grumpy. Gonna get the country gun out of give or take ages. Gonna get her loving on the farm boy's wages. I left my heart there with the young conservatives parked there. Yeah, yeah, yeah. But my heart, come on, the puppy dog is rolling on the floor. Being picked up a tick by the girl from the country.
I take this opportunity to thank you for inviting myself and Nicholas down. I'm going to give you some information on the structural side of Amazon and how we operate as members within the GMB. Now, what happened last year, August 2020, was a pay award was awarded to the staff, and how it worked out that the pay award was brought forward from October, where we normally have what we call an all-hands meeting where the general manager presents the information. leading up to August at that point, there had been a lot of people asking what would be the pay rise. Everybody's really keen for a pay rise because the cost of living was impacting on a lot of people in the building. Unfortunately, they decided that in line with their policy of 20p, 25p, 35p and 50p was to offer us 50p and say that was your lot. So that particular month in August I was off sick, but what happened was the good old days of the 50s and 60s, the day and night shift, down tools, 5 hours idle time between the two shifts, 10 hours, and they refused to come out of the canteen. And the only thing that got them back there was a general manager threatening to sign everybody out in contravention of health and safety to get them back. So he used a bit of a carrot or stick approach to drive them out. So August was a catalyst 2020, which galvanised people to leave the building and think strike was required. At that point though, there was no organisational structure behind it. It was word of mouth. You're on the phone, tell your friends, we're sitting down. So I believe that same day, a couple of my colleagues were to go and meet the GMB, because up until that point, the GMB is normally on site for just general disciplinary processes and not in any structured manner. So they represent their members on site. Small number, I think the membership at the time was about 35 to 40 up until 2020. And from that meeting in town, myself, Darren and a few others turned up at the Tamworth offices to actually start galvanise for what we would term industrial action. So what was pointed out that the GMB would bring their organisational skills to the table for campaigning. Myself and Darren were to be the pivotal spearheads in a media campaign which, unbeknown to me at the time, the coverage was to be actually global across the UK and into Europe. And they were invited to come up to my house with me and Darren to do the interview. And once the interview was then done, it was aired on a national TV. And the response was quite amazing. I had people talking to me in the street. They wanted to know what was going on. And from that actual TV campaign from August, it then went on to doing talks. And seeing the banner up there, it's one of the pivotal talks was the Trade Union Council of Coventry with David Nellis and Jean Ellis, who are quite instrumental in the political backgrounds and history of Coventry, that actually then had myself and Darren going to other organisations, train drivers, teachers, and talking about the Amazon that people didn't quite know was there. So August then was a catalyst. It was then decided that we need to kind of look what do we want to achieve. So within that meeting, we looked at organising a group on WhatsApp. Now the WhatsApp group is quite critical because it has a number of groups, which is an open group where anybody in this room can join once the invitation's been set up. We have what we call the Amazon Supporters Work Group, where other organisations will then come along, feeding into that group to other organisations, keep them abreast of what's going on with the actual developments of the strike planning at Coventry site. Then we have what we call the Amazon Leaders Group. Now the Leaders Group comprises of 10 individuals. Nicholas is one, myself is one, and within that group we'll actually be the ones that are prepared to go around and talk to other organisations. And also from the dynamics of that group now, we actually represent our members on site with some training from the GMB. So we have another group there. Now these groups are relevant because we know on group one, the management and their little lackeys will always be in that group, and you can tell by the tone that's taken at times that they're there on behalf of management. So once you close off the group one and into the other groups, which are more secure, you can trust the actual calibre of the person there to be true to their intent and not be supporting Amazon, but to work for the membership core on site. So through these groups now we can do Zoom meetings, invite people in, and we can cascade information about strike planning and so on. Within the issues faced with Amazon, which we explained to the GMB at the time, the warehouse comprises 95% migrant workers. The English are in the minority at probably 2%. Pushing past the English will come the Eastern Europeans, who might make 20% possibly, and then the rest of it will certainly be from the ethnic minorities from the African countries. Now within these African countries there is a language issue that they don't all speak the one language, so having to communicate, get information out, and explain the dynamics of what a union is was something that we found hard. So we learned we had to put information into different formats, so at least it could be shared around, and it looked like we were being inclusive, because when you're speaking to somebody in English and it's not their first tongue, the expression lost in translation is quite critical. So these were certain things we faced, and the other one was always a management dictum of that what we say is right, what we say is true, our word is a gospel, and you cannot question it. So management were never in any way supportive of its workers. We have a voice, supposedly the voice is either rubbed out when you put it down on the whiteboard where you can leave a message, or they just decide not to answer it, or they just close the thread down of the actual whiteboard where we can put our views. So we have quite a rigid management style that follow the dictum that if you're wrong, you're always wrong, and when you're right, you're never right, you're wrong, and Amazon is always right. So to argue that is virtually impossible when the mindset is that you are wrong from the moment you have an issue. So quickly to explain that, something doesn't scan properly, and I've scanned, say, for 2 hours and nothing works. As far as they're concerned, that's my problem, that affects my rate, that'll be a problem later. The fact that Amazon didn't fix the problem, they don't care. So as we go on, I'll pop back to this point to explain the way I work is to make sure I document and log things. So when we have this conversation, I actually have material evidence, because what Nicholas said, you can be doing something at 8 o'clock, they come to you at 4 o'clock, ask you what have you done, and you're not going to remember what you did at 8 o'clock. So you have to document things. So the reason for the strike then from the workers was key, that during COVID, they were actually paid an extra £2 an hour as a sweetener. They were told they were key workers. We were given a letter that if we were stopped in the morning explaining that we were key workers, that £2 an hour hourly rate was paid for 6 weeks, and then with no discussion, no reasons why, Amazon decided to go and stop that. Now, that was the straw that broke the camel's back, because a lot of people were relying on that. They were doing 60 hours a week to try and get their wages up, as opposed to the 40 hours. I myself, I didn't actually get the £2 because I was leaving to go home at 3:30. My mum was in hospital at that point in regards to COVID. So I didn't get the benefit of the actual £2 an hour. But a lot of people were just so incensed why they'd done this, no explanation why. So that little slow burning candle, which was to escalate as we now from COVID to August of last year to where we are at present. So what we then had was that 50p was put to the table. A lot of staff were just so angry they had to do something about it. They didn't quite know how to galvanise properly. And one thing that had to be pointed out to them, to withdraw your labour in an ad hoc manner leaves you open to be sacked. So we had to explain that being within a union will give you the safety that you can withdraw your labour, and the employer then can't just turf you out for a breach of contract. So we're trying to get this point across to people. The TV campaign then highlighted what was going on. The talks to other organisations, from myself down other colleagues, was exposing the brutality of the regime at Amazon, which we term to be modern day slavery. So now, if we look at how things are going, we've had help from other organisations to come along to promote the strike action. The strike action in Coventry was planned with a one-day message to go to Amazon at the very beginning to say we haven't gone away. We had a 6-month window that comes to the end in June. And when we took the vote at the next meeting, it was quite a mutinous environment, because the GMB were shocked that when we said we want 6 days of action on the spin, they felt that was too much, where everybody present said it's 6 days or it's nothing. So the message being sent to Amazon, we're going to kick your ass on this one. So we picked the 6 days. We did a coverage of you had to do 4 hours on the picket line to get your money. And the GMB helped to organise the picket line, and on the time that I wasn't there, the first picket was such a success, it backed up traffic from the site onto the A45, which created about a 4-mile tailback. So
I'm one of these people, as my friend's been telling me, if you're going to be on a picket ride, you have to cause mayhem. It's not a case of, hello, we're here. We were pretty organised and calm in the way we did things, but it got to the point that the GMB gave us the encouragement that once you stop a lorry, just have a social chat. Once you stop the lorry, everybody is stuck behind the lorry going out, and it worked spectacularly. So the police got a bit miffed at that, cited breach of the peace, tried to stop us from doing that. If we then now move forward to the last week of the action, which has just finished, I was out at other areas, Rugeley, Mansfield, trying to canvass members in there, that side, and colleagues were on site, and there's a fantastic thing of them actually marching from the roundabout where they're off Amazon's site, onto the site, to the gates, just a wave, and when I could count, without exaggerating, there was over 100 plus people there. The day they did that, Amazon then put out a notice, if you're caught trespassing, they will take action. But that was more to be aimed at the GMB, because technically we're employed by Amazon, so we can go onto Amazon's property when we see fit. But the strength of that feeling, seeing 200 individuals coming towards them, shouting on the loud hailer, right in front of the general manager's window, was more than they could bear. So from this point now, the feeling of being quite passive has gone to being a bit more, we need to be forward. So that was to be applauded. They did the right thing there, because their management then realised that they weren't dealing with a bunch of idiots, but some serious people who were extremely pissed. During the picket process, colleagues would stop people, like I know you over there, what are you doing going into work? Turn off your car engine, we want to have a chat with you, come and sign up. And it's literally, come and sign up. And during that period, they were averaging 40 to 60 signers from the picket line, car, join, don't go into work. And we explain why. You'll get paid for loss of shift, we'll give you the protection. So from 2022 to around 35, 50 to 2023, we have over 700 members on site. And to me, that is a monumental achievement, because I probably thought by the end of the year we might have probably creeped up there, but it's a fact I can look at the TV and say, I've talked to that one, I know that one, oh look, them two over there that always go to the toilet together. The whole of the warehouse is out on our side. It's probably only the temps that make the imbalance, that it's not the entire workforce. So from 35 members in less than 2 years to 700 plus, Amazon, although they're chatting crap about they're not negotiating, we do know that the law will bring them to the negotiation table with that number, and we don't have to worry about the second process of trying to get the numbers. We now have it. So the next thing we're going to be doing now is look for another forward planning of strikes when this June one finishes, and our strategy is to be very selective on key dates that will impact upon Amazon. We're also in the process of going to Rugeley, Mansfield, Coval, and there's a couple of other sites within the West Midlands geographical location. Mansfield, I've been there myself. We were well received by the members of the public there, showing the GMB flags. People were taking our leaflets, and we went there to show them, because they're not allowed to talk about Coventry, we went there to show them that we're here from Coventry, we're not GMB, we're here to support you. And my rallying cry is, right, £15 an hour, right, no overtimes, no terms and conditions, right, and to be treated with respect, because the £15 sounds a lot, but if we look at Amazon's profit in a 10-year period, counting backwards, within the decade, at year one, in this country alone, because it's behind America for value of what it brings to Amazon profit-wise, they made $4 billion at the first year. If we then come back to this year now, the profits haven't been disclosed yet, but they dropped $2 billion to drop down to $30 billion in 2021. This is in the UK alone. So we know Amazon has a huge amount of money. They've changed our working patterns and no consultation. I spoke to a guy at Rugeley the other day. It was £6 an hour. They were being paid a percentage for an individual rate and for a group collective. If we now stand where we're at, there's no such thing as that. The one thing that we had as a share value between £2,000 to £3,000, depending where it was, Amazon decided in 2018, according to Amazon, we had a vote to relinquish that share, have it paid into our hourly rate, If we take off that rate, that share from the hourly rate, we'd be at about 950, 980. So when you're hearing Amazon talk about 27%, they've paid us from 2018, now 37% because of the 250p's, you have to remember that we lost a £2,000 share out of that. And then the other things that they brag about in this percentage, I pay £10 a week for additional add-ons into my wages for health provision and other things. So although it's subsidised, I'm still paying out of my pocket. So we want to dispel the myth that Amazon are paying us 37%, they're not. They've taken out shares and they've paid us less over the years, so we can have this imaginary figure. And you'll always hear that it's a figure broadcast, but nobody comes and talks behind that figure, because they had to be justified why the management is too stupid to be able to justify that. So where we're at now is that we've had a series of strikes, and the first strike that we had for one day, it cost the G&B £7,000. When we moved to the second stage of the strike, because then it included the night and day shift and the numbers were growing, that first week of the strike action was £100,000. Now, we've got members inside the building that are demanding more strikes as we speak. And they're not talking about one day, they're talking about a prolonged period of strike action. So part of what I do as I go around to these organisations is to make them aware that if anybody wants to contribute in any way to the GMB, we have an app which I can give to Dave that you can pass around. We're not expecting anybody to be dipping into their pockets here, but it's to let people know if they want to support us financially, you can make contributions by using of an app. So what it is that we want to achieve? Well, we want the union recognition in there. We want people, like Nicholas's case, a classic one. You're not well, you go off sick over a period of 6 months, and Amazon is waiting for you with a letter. Now, they say it's a letter of concern. The trouble with that letter of concern, it only takes 2 more and you're within sucking distance of Amazon. So at the beginning, yeah, it's a nice letter, let's map out what's going on, but we just know it's a tool to sort you out, because Amazon's attitude is that we're disposable assets, we're there for the short term. Nicholas made a good point about the robots, which I have to expand on quickly. They have £11 million robot on one side of the building where I used to work. When I used to go there, it was like this room here, it was full of people. On the times I've been back to the HR, I've looked around thinking, how's it so empty? So I spoke to a gentleman just before I went off work. Because of that £11 million robot, it's now made a redundant area of humans, because it only takes one robot to do the job of at least 100 people. As we speak now, P1 is a floor that I used to work on. We've now found from one line of experimental robots, they have the new improved Mark II. They've gone to 3 lines. So out of 9 lines we're talking with pops 40 people a line, we now only have 3 lines of humans, because the robots have now taken over those lines, and the robot teams now have been pruned down to just 2 individuals to bang out a rate. Now we know they're doing the job, because from 750,000 units a day to be shifted, with them robots on board, we're pushing 1.2 million. That's a humongous rate of producing, getting things flowing. And now, management have decided to commit to putting robots upstairs. So my colleagues on borrowed time do not understand that if you do not get into a union now, no consultation, then robots that are downstairs on 6 lines will soon be upstairs. The robots on the far side of the building where Nicholas works, they are so speed orientated, you can watch a box, blink your eye and the box is gone. So we are under attack from the robots as we speak. And then of course the way we're monitoring is the artificial intelligence that says Nicholas has gone to the toilet, what you've been doing for half hour, idle time, and it sets off a disciplinary at some point. So I'm not going to go any further into what I've said. You do need to watch this space. We will be back again at some point across the media coverage. Whatever you hear about Amazon from an Amazon person is not fabricated. It is actually the God's given gospel. That is Amazon. Thank you for your time.
With my knowledge of Das Capital, I knew she'd be impressed.